Hello guys, welcome to the first ever Solar Blooms vlog. We just finished recording drums for our upcoming mini album, and I thought to myself that I probably should show you our drum recording setup because frankly speaking, it is pretty insane. I decided to start shooting in this long corridor because I thought that would be pretty cool. So let's go. Welcome to our studio. It is a bit of a mess right now, but that's what you always get when you're recording. Here are the drums themselves. These are old Amati drums. I don't know which year they are from. I don't know which model this is. All I know, this is old ass Amati drum set. The finish, of course, is not original. That's just my doing. So let's go and see what's up. Well, first and foremost, check out this guy. This is my drum throne. Look at that. If it works, it works. I like sitting pretty high behind my set, so that's why there's so much stuff going on over the stool itself. But yeah, as I said, gets the job done. Now, let's look at the kit itself. Off with the headphones. So let's start with snare. This is my snare drum, which is a 14-inch snare. It has 10 lugs on it, which is pretty amazing. It did not come with the drum kit itself. I bought it separately for around $100. And it is some old German snare. I don't know what it is, but it sounds pretty good. It has a bit of muffling here, a bit here, and an internal muffler here. If you ask me, it sounds pretty good. Next, the shells. As you may have noticed, I don't have any resonant heads on my shells, not even on the kick drum. That's because I'm using pretty cheap drum heads. Well, not pretty cheap, really cheap drum heads, and it becomes next to impossible to tune this thing properly when the resonant heads, there they are, when the resonant heads are on. Besides that, we have a really dense mix, which doesn't need a lot of resonance in the first place. When you take off the resonant head, you basically just have an attack and a little bit of sustain, which is perfect for the situation that we are in. Here's how they sound. I've got a 12-inch, 13-inch, and a 16-inch floor tom. The main element here are the muffling pads. Without those things, these heads sound obnoxiously bad. They ring too much, they have too much excessive overtones, too much low end, no matter how you tune them. The standard rules of drum tuning just do not apply to these heads. But with the resonant heads off, proper muffling, they sound pretty decent. By the way, this is a 22-inch kick. And some nameless pedal. Now let's talk about the cymbals. This is a 14-inch hi-hat. It is a Solar by Sabian, which is a budget line of Sabian, and it is a B8 alloy. Normally, you would think that this thing would sound like crap. However, that's not the case. Sounds like a hi-hat to me, and a pretty decent one. Next is a 20-inch ride, which is the same brand as the hi-hat. Again, sounds pretty decent. It has a bit of excessive overtones and too much of the metal shimmer, which brings a lot of unnecessary bottom end. However, with the proper miking, you can basically eliminate different parts of the sound characteristics of this cymbal, which we did. Next is my 18-inch crash cymbal, which is a Wu-Hang crash. This is a B20 alloy cymbal, and it is my favorite cymbal on the set. It sounds really good. It sounds at least $100 over what it already costs. Now, I know that a lot of you really hate 16-inch crashes, but this is a special one. This is a Stag 16-inch Brilliant Rock Crash. It is a rather weird sounding cymbal. It sounds like Crash, China, and even Gong simultaneously. The sound is not really pleasant on its own, and I get that. However, for some reason in the mix, it makes total sense. And you will hear that when our songs will be out. Or maybe you're watching this video when they are already out, so give your opinions in the comments. What do you think about this cymbal? Because I hit it pretty frequently on a record. So there you have it. This is my kit. The drums are pretty filthy, I know that. I'm too lazy to clean them. I clean them once in a while and they get filthy pretty quick. So, I don't know, I'm just waiting for the next run of inspiration to clean them. And they stay clean for about 3 rehearsals, and then they go back to looking like absolute shit. Now to the microphones. On the overhead, I use this Rode NT1A large diaphragm condenser microphone. It is a really nice microphone, really versatile. I use it to record acoustic guitars, electric guitars, the top end of the bass guitar, and the drums. It has really nice, bright, sparkly sound. Unfortunately, I don't have the second microphone like that, so for the second overhead I use Audio-Technica AT2020. This microphone is a bit darker than the Rode, however it still has a really nice clean sound. And given that on this side I have much brighter cymbals, it kind of makes sense to use this microphone. As you can see, I use a spaced pair miking. Both microphones are on the same distance from the snare, and I'm pretty happy with the result. So outside these 2 microphones and the room microphone, which we will get to eventually, this kit is almost exclusively mic'd up with Shure SM58. It is not a really conventional thing to do, but hey, I used what I had access to. Let's get to snare drum. The top of the snare is mic'd by Shure SM57, which is a pretty traditional thing to do. Nice, balanced snare top sound. Then I've got SM58 pointed at the shell, and another SM58 pointed directly at the snare wires. I think this is the best way to mic up your snare drum, because you get your top end your shell resonance, and snare wires shimmering all at once, and you can play with it on a post-processing part. This gives you the most comprehensive picture of your snare drum. As for the toms, I've got another set of SM58s here. As you can see, the microphones are outside the shells. They are pretty high, and they are pointed to the center of the beater head. This allowed me to reduce all of the unnecessary bottom end, all of the unnecessary resonance, and achieve this nice clear punch that is perfect for the mix that we have at our hands. It is a bit lower on a floor tom because I just like when the floor tom has more of that bottom end, but not too much. Now the hi-hat, and I know that some of you looking at this miking technique already type an angry comment saying, David, you are an idiot. Nobody mics hi-hat like that because the air from the gap interferes with the sound that mic is trying to capture. And I know that. However, believe me when I say it, this particular hi-hat only sounds good when it's mic'd up like that. I tried all the things that I could find on the internet. I tried to mic it from the top, from the angle, from the opposite side of the head, from underneath the head. I tried out 5-6 different positions, and only when I did this, I became satisfied with the result. I'm aware that there are general rules, general ways to approach miking different parts of the drum set. I know that. However, sometimes you just have to go what works for you specifically. Okay? Now to the right. It is at the slight angle right at the edge of the right cymbal. This allowed me to eliminate all of the characteristics of this right that I don't like, which are excessive bottom end, excessive, I don't know what you call that, boingness, and allowed me to capture just the attack and a bit of that sparkly right shimmering, which is perfect. Off we go to the kick drum, where you can see a brick. Now, of course, this brick is holding the muffling from falling out from the shell. And again, I am aware that at first glance, that's too much muffling. But again, these drums are pretty specific sounding, and they have a lot of sound characteristics that I just don't like. So with aggressive muffling, I just eliminate those characteristics, and these drums start to sound normal. As for the microphones, you can see another SM58 inside the shell pointed directly at the beater. I'm using this mic to capture just the attack. I'm not interested in low end, I'm not interested in none of that stuff. No body, I just need that microphone to capture the attack. That's it. And for the low end and the body, we've built this DIY subkick held by a zip tie. With this configuration, we were able to capture a nice balanced kick sound with a lot of attack and adequate low end, which we then can tweak during the mixing process. Last but not least, the room microphone. Now, this is a really interesting mic. It is a cheap Chinese BM800, and this microphone costs like $10. You can even find that thing for as low as $8, I guess. Now, why it is so cheap? First of all, because its build quality is bonkers. It is built from absolute garbage, and it is held together by thoughts and prayers. The next issue that this microphone has is that it is extremely hot. You can roll down the gain knob all the way to the 0, and this microphone will still pick up a ton of signal. So it is not necessarily the most versatile microphone. However, the sound quality itself is there. You will not be able to use it like an overhead or mic up shells or a snare, stuff like that. But as a room microphone, it is extremely useful and it sounds really decent, especially for the price. Now let me show you where all that stuff is connected to. Here we have the first piece of our puzzle, which is a Tascam US1641. It is a really old USB interface, but it is really good. We have 10 inputs here, 8 microphone inputs and 2 line inputs. We've got overhead number 1, overhead number 2, kick microphone in, sub kick, snare drum top, 12-inch tom, 13-inch tom, floor tom, bottom of the snare, and snare shell. Now again, I understand that normal people do not use line inputs to record microphones, but again, when you don't have enough inputs, you gotta do what you gotta do. And all of this stuff runs into this laptop, into Cubase 6.5. So this interface is used to capture the main sound of the kit. However, there are only 10 microphones in it, and we've got 13. The rest are connected here. So the hi-hat microphone and the ride microphone go into this first gen Scarlett 2i2 and run into this laptop. The room microphone goes in here, which is a Scarlett Solo 2nd gen, and goes into here. I told you that our setup is pretty crazy, and when you're short on inputs, you got to get creative. All in all, this allowed us to record our drum set with 13 microphones and get a pretty decent result. Thank you for staying with me through this chore of a video. Please write in the comments what do you think of our setup, and yeah, stay tuned for our new music because it will be spectacular. See you next time.